Welcome to the deep dive. We're your shortcut to getting up to speed on the big shifts happening right now. And today, we're tackling something pretty fundamental. It's about AI, but not just as a tool. We're talking about artificial intelligence moving right into the corporate boardroom as a director.
Exactly. That's the core tension we're really digging into. We've pulled together sources on the legal side, the tech side, and even the sort of conceptual thinking behind it.
Yeah.
We want to unpack how these artificial directors, or sometimes they're called robo councils, are actually starting to emerge.
Robo councils,
Yeah.
wow.
And the mission here is to lay out this central paradox for you. The law is, surprisingly quickly, making space for AI governance. But the technology itself is still bumping up against a very human need explainability. We need to understand why it makes the decisions it does.
And this isn't science fiction, is it? It's not some far-off future thing. I mean, the predictions were for, what, 2026?
That's what the World Economic Forum projected back on June
Yeah.
15th. They said, okay, first AI director by 2026. But things move faster,
Yeah.
way faster. The first official announcement, that was actually 2014.
2014. So even before the WEF prediction.
A Hong Kong venture capital firm, Deep Knowledge Ventures, they appointed an AI called Vital to their board.
Vital. What did that stand for again?
Validating investment tool for advancing life sciences. Basically analyzing biotech investments.
Okay, so Vital was the pioneer, the first mission director. But, was that just a VC doing something flashy, or did it stick?
Well, it wasn't just a one-off. Fast forward just 2 years, 2016, a Nordic company, Tieto, they appointed an AI named Alicia T as a top manager for a whole new business unit.
Alicia T.
And Tieto's a public company listed on NASDAQ Nordic. So that was a big step. A listed company bringing AI into management.
Okay, so it's clearly happening. But the big question that jumps out, for me at least, is how? How is this even legally possible?
Yeah, that's where it gets really interesting. It boils down to the global standards, or maybe the lack of specifics in them. The main one, the G20 OECD Principles of Corporate Governance. They guide how corporations should be run globally.
Right, the big framework.
Well, they don't actually say a director has to be a physical person, a human being.
Wait, seriously, the main global standard just doesn't specify human? That feels like a huge oversight. Or maybe a convenient loophole.
It's more a product of how these things developed, maybe. The principles generally leave the specific requirements for who can be a director up to local laws. And crucially, there's already a concept in modern corporate law called the corporate director.
Okay, what's that?
That's where a legal entity, like another company or an LLC, is actually appointed to a board and given the powers of a board member. So the idea of a non-human entity having director powers isn't totally new.
Okay. But comparing an LLC, which is ultimately run by people, to an algorithm that thinks for itself, that seems like a different category altogether, doesn't it?
It's definitely a conceptual jump, no question. But from a purely legal structure perspective, the precedent is sort of there. The focus shifts from who the director is to what legal duties they can perform.
Right. Can it fulfill the obligation?
Exactly. And this wasn't unforeseen. Academics were actually thinking about this stuff decades ago.
Decades? Like when?
Way back in 1970, Professor Mir Dan Cohen, he wrote about the idea of an impersonal corporation.
Impersonal corporation.
Yeah, a company totally run by automated systems. His argument was, look, if the computers can meet all the legal requirements of corporate management, replacing the humans wouldn't fundamentally change the corporation's legal status.
1970, that's pretty prescient.
It really was. And that thinking laid the groundwork for more, let's say, practical ideas later on. Like Sean Byron suggested a kind of legal workaround. Give an autonomous algorithm legal personality simply by putting it under the control of an LLC.
Like a legal wrapper for the code?
Pretty much a legal hack, essentially.
And then others took it further.
Right. Lynn Lopuki talked about the algorithmic entity. That's where the algorithm itself does everything a legal person would, rights, duties, the whole package.
That sounds a lot like DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, in the crypto space today.
Very similar concept, yes. Yeah. And all these ideas sort of came together more recently with the term autonomous company or self-driving company.
Self-driving company, like a self-driving car.
Exactly, the analogy Armour and Ida Mueller used in 2019. But it's not just about replacing the CEO, It's about the entire board, the whole oversight structure.
Okay, and that's where we get those more dramatic terms you mentioned.
Right, Martin Petrin talked about the fused board.
Fused board?
The idea is maximum efficiency. You take all the different roles you need on a human board, the finance expert, the legal compliance person, the strategist, And you combine or fuse all those functions into one piece of software, one algorithm. The thinking is that this single unified AI mind could outperform a group of humans.
But hang on. If you fuse everything into one complex algorithm, one black box, what happens to checks and balances? What about dissent? Isn't the whole point of a diverse board to have different perspectives to challenge things?
That is the absolute key challenge, the accountability question.
Yeah.
And we'll definitely circle back hard on that.
Okay.
But just finishing the terminology Florian Musline used, robot director, often linking it again to DAOs,
And then the most vivid one,
Gian Mosco's Robo Council, which, yeah, sounds a bit more like sci-fi than Vital did.
Robo Council. It definitely paints a picture. Okay, so we have the legal opening, the concepts. How is this stuff actually being used now in practice?
Good question. The sources point to two main ways this automated decision-making is creeping into the top levels.
Okay, two paths.
Path one is the big, centralized system. Think of it like a brain for the company. They call it a digital command center, or DCC.
DCC, Digital Command Center. And path two?
Path two is more piecemeal,
Yeah.
automating specific individual functions of the board, which could eventually be combined.
Got it. So let's talk about path one first, the DCC. You mentioned an example.
Yes, the big one that gets cited a lot is ADNOC's Panorama Digital Command Center. ADNOC is the Abu Dhabi National Oil Company. It's been running for several years.
ADNOC, that's huge, right? Massive state oil company.
Absolutely massive. Turnover north of $60 billion. And this Panorama Center, it pulls in real-time data from like over a dozen of their subsidiaries and joint ventures. Integrates everything.
Wow. Just collecting that data in real time is a feat. What does it do with it?
It uses pretty sophisticated AI and analytical models. It analyzes all that incoming data and generates operational recommendations, conclusions, basically telling management what to do.
And it does this instantly.
Effectively, yes.
Mhm.
And it's using advanced tech digital twins to model and monitor operations, blockchain, to record everything securely.
So it's not just a fancy dashboard.
No, not at all. The key thing the sources emphasize is that the AI's recommendations from Panorama are treated by the human leadership as the single source of truth. It functionally replaces that slower, traditional process of human directors gathering reports, debating, deciding.
So the AI's output essentially becomes policy in real time.
Pretty much. The sources call it a digital factory, operating right inside this huge
A
corporation.
digital factory. And the benefits.
They point to clear advantages,
Yeah.
lower agency costs because the AI monitors constantly, much better real-time transparency because everything's logged, and just faster, more efficient operations.
Okay, that's the centralized DCC approach. What about the second path? Automating individual functions.
Right. That's also happening quite rapidly. Think about things like automated compliance checks, making sure the company is following all the rules without waiting for human review.
Less paperwork, faster checks.
Exactly. Or automating shareholder communications. But one really interesting area we found research on
Yeah.
is actually using AI to select future human board members.
AI choosing the humans.
Yeah, research from 2021, scientists from Ohio State, Colorado, Washington, they explored using machine learning for this. And the suggestion was that AI might pick very different profiles for directors than human managers typically do, maybe more objective choices, less based on existing networks.
Interesting. Okay, so whether the AI is picking the directors or acting as a director or running a command center.
It still faces the same fundamental requirements as any human director legally and ethically.
We are.
Non-discrimination,
Right.
transparency, accountability, these are non-negotiable.
And that's the brick wall, isn't it? Especially transparency and accountability.
Yeah.
Because bias can get baked into AI systems.
Absolutely. The sources talk about bias creeping in at, well, three main stages. The data you feed it, the input, how you train it, and the underlying programming.
Input training programming, got it. So how do you manage that risk?
The consensus seems to be around those three pillars.
Yeah.
You need transparency into how it works, you need explainability for its decisions, and you need clear lines of accountability when things go wrong.
Okay, but transparency and explainability, that runs straight into the black box problem, right?
Precisely. Especially with deep learning AI. The algorithms are so complex, they learn in ways that even their creators can't fully trace.
So if an AI director makes a disastrous billion-dollar decision, how do you explain why it did that? If nobody actually knows the exact path it took through millions of
Huh.
calculations.
That is the core technological constraint right now. And the legal world is grappling with it.
How so?
Well, in the European Union, for example, they're trying to establish a right to explanation for citizens affected by automated administrative decisions.
A right to explanation.
Yeah, but we can actually look back further to the U.S. to see how difficult this explainability requirement is in practice.
What examples?
Think about consumer credit laws. The Fair Credit Reporting Act from 1970, the Equal Credit Opportunity Act from 1974.
Okay, preventing discrimination in lending.
Exactly. They ban discrimination based on race, age, etc. But crucially, they also require that if someone is denied credit, they have to be given a clear, understandable explanation why.
So the bank can't just say, computer says no.
Right. They have to provide specific reasons. And this need for a comprehensible explanation has had a major impact.
How?
It's widely believed that the complexity of algorithms used in credit scoring systems is often limited specifically because they must be explainable under these laws.
So the need for explainability actually caps the AI's sophistication.
In many ways, yes. If you can't explain the why in simple terms, the system might be illegal. Now imagine applying that standard not just to a credit decision, but to a robo-counsel making huge strategic calls for a multinational corporation.
The stakes are way higher, and explaining a complex strategic decision derived from deep learning seems almost impossible right now.
It's incredibly challenging.
Okay, so let's pull this together. What does it all mean for the future of the corporation? We've got the legal door creaking open because governance rules didn't specify human.
We've got the academic ideas of the self-driving company laid out decades ago.
Yep.
And we see the tech already being implemented with things like AD&OC's Digital Factory Command Center.
Right, it's all converging. And if you want to connect this to an even bigger idea, think about the concept of technological singularity.
The intelligence explosion idea.
Exactly, but applied to corporate competition. An explosion of increasingly higher levels of intelligence driving how companies operate.
How would that play out?
Well, imagine companies that figure out how to implement these AI governance systems, effectively managing the risks, getting the efficiencies. They'll likely become much more competitive, much faster.
Right, like AD&OC's efficiency gains.
Exactly. And being more competitive means they get more resources, more market share, which then allows them to invest in even better AI management systems.
Creating a feedback loop, a widening gap.
A potentially powerful one. Better AI leads to more success, which funds even better AI. That's a pretty stark competitive landscape shaping up. And it implies that even if laws in some places make it hard to formally appoint an AI to the board because of that explainability problem,
The internal shift will likely happen anyway.
because the competitive pressure from companies using these internal digital factories will be too immense to ignore.
That seems very plausible. The governance might effectively shift to the algorithms internally, even if a human still holds the official title and signs the papers. The real decisions are driven by the AI.
The digital factory takes over from within,
It could well do.
which leaves us, and you listening, with a pretty big thought to chew on. If the algorithms are running the strategy, monitoring operations in real time, maybe even picking the next generation of human leaders, what's your role going to be in a company increasingly governed by AI? How do you make sure your human judgment, your voice, still matters inside that digital factory?